Hey.
One thing that I love about the Amazon is how the days pass in this kind of languid, hazy pace. It's not boring or slow, just peaceful. And the whole time I was there, I hardly used my watch, I had no idea what day it was, and I never had to get out my wallet. The night I arrived, there was this din of crickets and these eerie, unearthly cries, which I later found out were from howler monkeys, and caiman splashing through the river. And all these noises crowded out even my own thoughts. I remember having this really distinct impression that the Amazon was a place where people were no longer the loudest ones and no longer the center of attention. It takes more than 30 hours by boat to travel from Manaus, the largest city in the Amazon with over 1.5 million inhabitants, to the Xixua-Sheep-Andina Reserve, where only about 120 people reside. On the edge of Brazil's least populated state, Roraima, the reserve is emerging as an important example of how to protect one of the most ecologically sensitive and valuable areas on Earth. Chris Clark, a permanent resident and co-founder of the Xixua, explains the reserve's formation.
Well, I was traveling in the Amazon just as a traveler in 1984 and hired a boat out of Manaus, and one of the first rivers that I visited was the Jauperi, this main river here. And between 1984 and 1990, I travelled all over the Amazon, more or less every year. Took a trip to the Amazon, to different parts of it, but also came back to the Jauperi every year. And in 1990, some of the older guys from the area got together and asked me if there wasn't something we could do together to help them solve their problems of lack of education for their children and lack of health service for everybody. And the fact that many of the people from the area were being forced to move to the slums of Manaus or other cities because they had none of these services. And as I'd been coming back every year, they realised that I obviously liked the area, so we talked it through and came up with the idea of forming the Amazon Association. And under the Amazon Association, they would all become members, but they would sell their landholding rights to the area here in the Xixua to the association, so basically to themselves. And they would guarantee the protection of the area, and I would go looking for resources to build a school and provide a health service, and which is what we've done. It started off with about 10,000 acres, and now we've reached almost 500,000 acres as more and more people have asked to join, and the area has grown. So now the Xixua-Sheep-Andina Reserve is on 2 rivers, 2 tributaries of the Jauperi, and covers about 500,000 acres. At the very beginning, we started off with just one family of people living here. But there were other people from the area who had what they considered rights to certain parts of this area because traditionally they harvested Brazil nuts, or because their family had lived here but then they'd been forced to leave because of lack of resources and lack of assistance. And as soon as we set this place up, they started asking to come back. So people from other parts of this river, people from outside this river, and in fact even people from Manaus started asking if they could move back up here. And the local people themselves, as it grew, formed a sort of committee that decided whether or not a family was suitable to move up here, and sometimes they tried them out and it didn't work out. The guy had an alcohol problem or wasn't very honest or whatever, so they would say, sorry, we don't want this person living here. But the ones that worked out stayed, and it's grown from one family to now a total of 120 people living in the reserve.
So everything, all the property here is held communally, and all the decisions
are made? Everything is communal, yeah. Everybody works together, there's no work for any individual person. Like, for example, you saw that the boat of tourists arrived the other day, and 7 of the guys worked, but there are 14 guys who receive for their families food and money here, and the money that was paid to those 7 guys was divided between all 14 of them equally.
During my time in the Xixua, I was able to tour the infrastructure built with seed money from various NGOs around the world, such as the school and health clinic. Today, the reserve receives about 3/4 of its cash from ecotourists like myself, and from groups such as the BBC and Jean-Michel Cousteau's Ocean Futures Society, paying for the right to film the abundant marine and wildlife of the area. The remaining money is given in grants by governments and nonprofits from Italy, Scandinavia, and North America. Residents of the reserve use cash to purchase goods such as coffee, sugar, rice, beans, and fuel, all of which must be shipped in from Manaus. I obviously was shocked to learn that in the Amazon, things like a diet outside of fish and flour or basic medical care were considered luxuries. But what was almost as amazing, and what piqued my interest in the Shishwa to begin with, was the reserve's satellite internet connection powered by solar energy. In 2002, the U.S. NGO Solar Electric Light Fund, or SELF, partnered with Utah-based company OnSat to install 22 panels and a satellite internet relay. Here I was, thousands of miles from the nearest line of copper, and able to send emails and call home. For the community, the system means privileged access to the outside world, even in some places remote as the Shishwa. While the village has since outgrown its solar power supply, and the majority of electricity is now supplied by generator, the solar array was the first source of electricity in the reserve. As I spent time in the Shishwa, what I saw was a life fashioned from a combination of living off the forest bounty and pleasures from the modern world. The days here are tranquil, and people are as likely to be watching the latest football match as they are to be fishing or guiding visitors through the trees. But while life here is stable for now, the people of the Shishwa worry about encroachment of their land by outside interests. Here is Community President Eduardo Ferreira.